Government getting bigger and bigger and bigger every day. Is this the way our founders intended it to be? Spending is out of control, and the feds are snatching up land so fast that soon there won't be much land for them to grab, especially in the western part of the country. At some point, you know what they're going to have to come for, and that is our guns. But one man who is standing in the way of that happening is someone that you know from years and years of television. He's a former game show host turned Second Amendment advocate. How in the heck did that happen? We're going to ask him that because he's here with us right now. My good friend Chuck Woolery, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dr. Gina. And by the way, snapping up land recently, Teddy Roosevelt snapped it all up back in the early 1900s under the auspices of national parks and everything else. I mean, he's the one that really took all the land for the government.
Well, let's talk about that for just a moment. I do want to get to the guns, but this Bundy issue is a really big deal, and conservatives are divided. I've seen prominent conservatives say, hey, but it is federal land. I mean, you know, and if he would just pay his grazing fees. But then I've watched some of the strings that come attached to paying these grazing fees. When you sign off to pay these and they accept your first check, you have to sign away a lot of your sovereign freedoms, don't you? So what's the best route of attack here?
Well, the best route of attack is to vote new people in and have them change certain laws. I mean, the states need to stand up to the federal intrusion. That's number one. I mean, that is absolutely primary, and the states won't do it because of money. It's always money. When you follow the money trail, you figure out why everything works or doesn't work, and it's always because of money. So when you get states in there that have a backbone and start to reclaim some of this land if they possibly can, you know, and just demand it back, because a lot of it's just, you know, feral land. Nobody's using it for anything. It's not a state park. It's not anything. Utah, Nevada are like 90% federal land. And it's the state of Utah. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, yeah. These numbers are astonishing when you look at it on a map, and I think we have a graphic of that we showed before. But Nevada, about 85% of the land.
Yeah, Nevada is Washington, D.C. It's not Nevada.
Exactly. So where is the state sovereignty in that prospect? Because this certainly isn't what Teddy.
There is no state sovereignty in that. That's the problem.
This isn't what Teddy Roosevelt intended. And that's really the basis of all
of these problems. I mean, the feds will come in and charge you for anything they can get away with because they're all about collecting money at any price. If it's public land or private land, doesn't really matter. They're going to get their taxes. They're going to get their due. But, you know, with Bundy, it's kind of an interesting situation because, you know, he's in a situation where he's got to have to pay taxes or something. He ought to go make a deal with them right now because they used excessive force, which the American people hate. So they saw this excessive force used against this guy when they could have done it in other ways, probably far more subtle. And then on top of that, the most egregious thing they did for me was they set up a area for First Amendment speech in the desert, where it was a 20 by 20 area, and that was the only place you were allowed to speak. I mean, that is so against the Constitution. That's amazing. But, you know, it's interesting. As long as people will allow this kind of stuff to happen and not push back on it, then it's going to happen because, you know, federal government, as Thomas Jefferson has a tendency to, as Thomas Jefferson said, will always have a tendency to grow. It's our job to keep it from growing. But it doesn't seem like it's on the top of anybody's mind or many people's minds these days. So it just continues to grow.
Chuck, looking at this situation, what do you think? I mean, the psychological components are always what's fascinating to me. What do you think compelled more than 100 Americans to grab their guns and go to Nevada to defend this rancher when there have been, you know, jackbooted sorts of activities like this happening to small businesses all over the country for years? What is it about
what happened
this?
To guitars. I mean, that's a perfect example of guys, a SWAT team coming in there with automatic weapons and demanding that they turn over their business to them because they were using what they considered an illegal wood that, by the way, Fender and Taylor and everybody else used. But they picked up on Gibson because Gibson had made some right-leaning remarks and were, you know, kind of conservative in their attitude, so they went after him. It's nothing but punishment by the federal government. It's selective at that. So that's really what people are up in arms about. I think it's finally resonating with people that an out-of-control federal government uses excessive force on its enemies. And that's exactly what the Obama administration is doing.
So your journey to this place in your life, I find fascinating as somebody that lives sort of here in Hollywood, and I see those people and I talk to those people, and many of them, they believe what you and I believe, but they're not about to say it because they'll never get another game show hosting gig or another movie role or another directing gig. So tell me, what took you from really the top of your field in Hollywood to say, I have to be public in my opinion, especially on something as controversial really as the Second Amendment?
Well, it's simple. I'm not that courageous, so it was age. I think I finally outgrew my usefulness to Hollywood, and I thought, okay, now I'll tell them what I think, because it was, you just don't work if people know that you have these feelings that are, by the way, mainstream feelings. They're conservative to me is mainstream. It's not far right. It's a mainstream feeling for the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and all of those things which people don't know anything about anymore. And so if you're mainstream, you're considered far right, or you're painted as far right by the left today. And look, let's face it, Los Angeles is a left-leaning town. It's very liberal. It always has been. Well, yeah, I think it has been since the 50s, maybe 60s. So if you express your views even slightly there, number one, you are considered a racist, a homophobe, anti-whatever, and you're labeled, and you don't work. So you either elect to keep your mouth shut by intimidation, or you don't work. So I kept my mouth shut, and then when I didn't have to keep it shut anymore, I opened it up, and now I'm just, off the hook. There used to be people who loved me who were on the left. They hate me now.
I can't even imagine how that must be for you. On a personal level, we laugh, but on a personal level, that has to be somewhat painful and shocking.
It's really not, because, number one, look, for people who've seen me on television, they know who I am. Now they know what I think. That's the only difference.
And sadly, even the ones that agree with you can't say much about it or risk losing their careers. The Second Amendment issue is big to you. You write about it, you talk about it. This isn't the easiest issue to take on, even though the facts are so on your side. It's very simple. More guns equal less crime in the counties, in the states, you name it, in the countries where there are more guns owned by civilians. There is less tyranny, to be sure, and the first thing they come for is our guns. Those simple facts make it easy for me, especially as a petite female, to know that I need my little equalizer, which is my pistol. But what is it for you that makes this issue? You have to know what this is
about and what drives this. Crime doesn't drive it. What they call gun violence doesn't drive it. What drives it is ideology. If you can get the guns out of the hands of the average American and those rights taken away, those Second Amendment rights, then you can easily control them. This has been proven in history down through the years. All people have to do is back up for 70 years, and they can figure it out just recently. But that's the one thing that makes us unique, that we can carry guns in this. We can, wherever there's a city, Chicago's a great example right now. They're saying it's something else, but it's really not. Wherever there's a city where you can conceal and carry, crime goes down.
Right.
So it's, the facts are there, but unfortunately, we as the American people in general aren't really much interested in facts. We're kind of emotional and reactionary, and so facts don't seem to enter in. You can take a situation where a school, which is a gun-free zone,
right,
a naval base, a army base, which is a gun-free zone. Every place that are attacked, a theater, which is a gun-free zone, and I know people have heard this ad infinitum, but wherever there's a gun-free zone, there's a giant target. So, it's either people come to their senses and realize, I didn't grow up like this. I really didn't. In my time that I was growing up, you could go to a theater. These kinds of things didn't happen, but they're happening now. And the only way to deter them is to push back and put the power with the people. I don't believe, by the way, that a lot of people were talking about these bases, these army bases and things like that, like in Fort Hood, that everybody on base should be armed. But I think that there should be enough armed people who are in charge that can be there and respond quickly. You don't want to call the police on an army base.
Exactly.
You should have enough people to, take care of your own needs.
Exactly.
That I disagree with, but I think that if you arm everybody, I mean, if the police came in, they wouldn't know who's shooting at who. They're all in uniform. They don't know who the bad guys are. So I understand that argument.
Chuck,
But, moderation in all things.
Right, exactly. Chuck, you are one of those people that I just think we need to just take time to thank because of what you have sacrificed to be a true culture warrior, which is what you are. Folks like you, Morgan, Brittany, and others who have taken that risk. So I want to thank you for being on the show. Where can we go to find all your stuff, Chuck?
Oh, I'm sorry?
Where can we go to find all your work?
Well, I'm on Twitter, and, you can find that. And then I'm on YouTube with Save Us Chuck Woolery.
Save Us Chuck Woolery. I love that.